Welcome to Pivot Parenting, where we help parents of teens overcome regret and disappointment to find peace and connection in every situation. I'm Heather Frazier, your parenting expert. Journey with me to discover effective parenting tips, improve family relationships, and build a brighter future for your kids. Buckle up, things are about to get better. Hey, my friend, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited that you're here. And today I have a special guest, Amy Armstrong, with me. And we are talking about joy and the holidays and how a family can add to that or make it more challenging, and what you can do as a parent to take control and create the joy that you want in your family and around the holidays. Amy is a pioneer in the arena of conflict resolution for families as well as businesses and schools. She actually founded the Center for Family Resolution in Columbus, Ohio, and uses coaching to break through entrenched polarization, power imbalances, and divisiveness that can hamper our feeling of joy and love. I know you're going to love the conversation that we have and gain a lot of insight and wisdom from it that you can start applying. And so without further ado, here is my conversation with Amy. Welcome, Amy. I'm excited to have you here. How are you doing?
Thank you. Hi, Heather. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, Amy and I have such a fun topic for everybody today because
Mhm.
we are talking about joy.
And
Yes. And joy ties right into the number one thing that every single parent that I talk to wants to have, which is peace. Peace and joy kind of go hand in hand. They're sisters.
Mhm.
And so we could all use a little more joy and peace, especially around the holidays. So let's dive right in.
Yeah.
I have noticed that the holidays are really polarizing it in both directions for
Mhm.
uniting families or highlighting the struggles
Mhm.
with the holidays and family relationships. You know that my audience is parents of teens. And, if you have a teenager, you probably have a tween and also maybe a young adult, or you're going to head into adultness. And a lot of my peers right now, they're talking about their 20-year-old kids splitting up holidays, maybe going to the girlfriend's house or having a friendsgiving or
Mhm.
different things, and they are breaking from tradition, and it's really hard for the parents.
That is such a important topic. I love it that you dove right into that, Heather, because one thing I have run into more than a few times is when kids are resisting going to a church service. And that's always been such a big part of the holiday tradition and the family tradition. And, just how we can talk to children about what's negotiable and what is absolutely not negotiable in our family.
Yeah, and I think every family has to decide what that is for them
Mm-hmm.
based off of their priority. Is the
Exactly.
priority to have everyone there or else? Or is it to listen to everyone's unique needs?
I think the good news around it is that we can talk about it in a way that actually motivates teens and young adults to go to the service, even if it's not their first choice or their first priority, just by acknowledging that, I see you as an independent person with your own ideas. How can we preserve some of our family traditions, especially the ones that are the most important to your parents, in a way that still feels really honoring for you? And just that question alone feels so good to kids that you're noticing their pushback without it being a quote unquote problem sets such a beautiful tone for doing that negotiating and coming up with a solution of how everyone really can feel good about your choices.
I like the idea of being really open-minded and asking questions that can allow them, if they feel safe and interested in sharing their perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that can
Exactly.
go a long way in healing those sticky, touchy, tender points.
I have a couple of favorite phrases to toss in here along this theme. Heather, one of them is, this might not be a good time to um, talk about this at length, but I want to toss it out there for you to
Yeah.
think about. And so it takes the pressure off of any emergent moment where your teen happens to be hopping through the kitchen while you're working on
Yeah.
something,
Mm-hmm.
or on a car ride, where you can, again, give them the courtesy that you're not going to force a conversation right then. You're not going to force a decision right then. And it's just another way to show them that you want them to know that you see them as a whole human, even though they're not as old as you are.
Yeah, they are still a whole human.
Mhm.
Age age doesn't
They
make
they
people
get
more
to
or
have
less
an
human.
opinion.
I like that. I
Yeah.
like that phrase. What
Mhm.
other juicy phrases do you have for
Ooh.
us?
Yeah. So anytime you're checking in, right? So anytime the conversation gets a little tougher, to check in and say, how are you doing with this conversation? Have we done enough today? Do you want to circle back tomorrow? Do you want to keep going? And really honoring the process of addressing difficult subjects so that everyone gets a chance to reground and to have a say in how it's going. So one of the areas that I get a lot of feedback on is when kids feel like they get trapped into conversations.
Ah,
So we want to remember that even after the conversation has started, to see how they're doing and decide together, do we have this now? Are we doing okay? Do you want to keep going? Or do we want to let this sink in and circle back another time?
do you think that the holiday season emphasizes this time of potential
Mm.
conversation to allow for healing, forgiveness, reconnection?
We could look at Mary and Joseph
Mm-hmm.
and just say what they were asked to do was to allow things to turn out differently than they expected. And the message I know I always take from a lot of the Christmas hymns is to make room. And we're making room for new conversations. We're making room for some pauses. And if we can use the holiday season to remember that things are absolutely, for sure, not going to go exactly as we plan, number one, and that we can choose to make room for new conversations, then we can truly anticipate that joy moment where we're in receptive mode. We receive
Yeah.
joy. We don't expect joy. We don't we don't create it. We receive it when we're able to recognize the shifts in our expectations and when we can make room for other people to show up in their own way rather than in the way we would like to orchestrate it.
I like that. How does that play in? There are a lot of people that I know personally and clients who this is a hard Christmas. It's maybe the first Christmas as a blended family or as a family that
Mm,
is reconfigured in some way. There's been loss, whether that's through death, divorce, um,
move.
or maybe something even good, again, like a remarriage, but it's hard.
I am in that category myself. I will probably see one of my children on Christmas. but I won't see several of my grandchildren, and I won't see my two daughters. And so looking at the holiday as both a personal time and a family time really helps, right? Because obviously we have a lot more control over our own experience than we do over other people, right? So we go ahead and make our plans, do a lot of checking in, asking other people, how does this sound to you, right? So I work a lot, as you know, Heather, with families that have separated or divorced. And almost universally, parents like to be asked instead of told by the other parent what the plans are. I was thinking of having dinner at 3 o'clock. How would that work for you? Rather than you better have the kids here by 3. And so it's a lot of checking in and a lot of, um, we talk about codependence in relationships a lot, which simply means that our moods and our reactions and our emotions are dependent on what everyone else does. And the holidays are a great time to say, how can I do my own work, take responsibility for my moods and my reactions, no matter how this goes?
Yeah. And I think too, normalizing that grief and loneliness and feeling a loss
Mm-hmm.
is to be expected in situations
Mm-hmm.
that we're experiencing them, and that it's okay to have those, and it doesn't have to totally negate feeling any joy
It's the
as well.
that beautiful and.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your whole making room concept, which I really liked, of making room to have a polarizing emotional experience as well. You can feel the sweetness of the holidays and also,
The sting of
yeah,
loss. One thing I encourage people to do when they can't anticipate the grief and loss is to make a plan. If you have a day or part of a day that you're not going to get to be with your loved ones, where kind of stinks that you can't make the plans that you want, what are you going to do with that time? Is there another person that you know that you could hop on a phone call with or go for a walk? It could be just planning a walk with your dog. It
yeah,
could be planning on going through photo albums and pulling out old Christmas photos. But plan something, because even if it's going to be an emotional time, the more we plan, the more we feel in control. And part of the difficulty of grief and loss is we just feel so helpless. And if there's something we can do that lets us feel empowered, here's something I can do for myself for this period of time. I'll never forget the one Thanksgiving, after I had gotten remarried. Neither my husband or I were going to have our kids for Thanksgiving, and
mhm,
we were pouting. We were really being a little whiny. And so we planned to do a hike, and then it rained. And we put on our raincoats and we hiked in the rain. And we love that memory that we just had a very important experience that showed us both we are not at the mercy of our circumstances,
yeah,
and that we really could choose to do something that was meaningful anyway.
yeah. And that shows ability to just really allow for that full range of emotions.
Mm,
Disappointed, but
yeah.
steadfast and
I have a funny.
open-minded. Hi there. I just want to pause and let you know if you are struggling to make sense of your teen's behaviors, emotions are running wild, and you're looking to turn things around to have the family you dreamed of while rocking them to sleep, I would love to talk to you. I want to give you a special, powerful gift. 30 minutes with me, my friend. You'll walk away with more confidence, clarity, and understanding of what the issue is and your next best step in resolving any situation you bring to me. It's completely free. I love families and want to help yours be wildly happy and successful. Book this call by visiting my website, heatherfraser.com. Remember, Fraser is spelled with a Z-I in the middle. And don't worry, the link is also in the show notes. I look forward to meeting and helping you.
I have a funny habit. I'm a little quirky, but I have a funny habit. When I am having a big emotion, I like to tell myself, okay, Amy, you get 15 minutes, you get 20 minutes, or you get to listen to these 6 songs and have your time, have your big emotions. And then we're going to make a choice. Do we need another 20 minutes or can we move on to something else, like figuring out something else to think about?
Yeah.
And giving choice, just how so important for young children, it's so important for teenagers. It is so important for us to know we have choices because that keeps us out of victim mode.
Yeah.
And so we can have our big emotions. I love it that you called it the full range of emotion. That's what it is. We've got this very wide palette of emotion, and we get to give ourselves permission to feel it all. But I also like to create a little check-in point where I'm going to decide, do I want to pivot here? Or can I just devote the rest of the day to feeling lousy?
Yeah, that practice, it sounds like it's really you're sitting in the driver's seat of how
Exactly.
you feel, which does promote just that in and of itself,
You're not
positive
helpless.
emotions.
You can have your big emotions and not feel like you're at the mercy of them.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Jesus had the full range of emotion.
he
We have
did.
a wonderful model. There's nothing, no words of Jesus that tell us to put away our full range of emotions.
No,
We get to
no,
feel.
he was happy, he was
Yeah.
downtrodden, he was
Yeah.
all of the things.
I worked with a young man, a young adult at one point he struggled to let himself feel depressed because he was like, Amy, if I'm a Christian, I should feel joy. And I feel like I'm betraying Jesus if I'm depressed because I'm not living, the joy that is my birthright and the promise. And he made a little study of it. Like, how can I be both a Christian that is very committed to my faith, looking to God for everything, and still feel depressed? And he learned a lot about his body, he learned a lot about his brain, he learned a lot about the environment that he needed to create that helped him experience the presence of God more. But it was really cool
Yeah.
the way he worked through allowing that experience to not make it worse, to not
Yeah.
make it worse and
Which I
worse.
think has a lot to do with our expectations. If we have an expectation
Mhm.
and we're not meeting it, that is a joy killer. So if he's like, I shouldn't be depressed or I
Right.
shouldn't be
I'm not
upset
allowed.
or annoyed with my kids or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and I am, so I'm doing it wrong.
Exactly. And of course, that was a downward spiral if we get into
Hmm.
beating ourselves up.
Yeah. So how can we hold our expectations around the holidays and how family situations play out in a way that helps us
Um,
to find joy?
yeah. So habits are so gripping on us more than we realize. When we have a thought, it leads
Hmm.
to a feeling that leads to a behavior.
Yes.
And we tend to think that that's just our default, automatic. Of course, I do this. We actually have choices. So, for example, I'm a breather. I hope we all are. I'm a very conscious breather. That softening of the belly. I do what's called a connected breath, in for two, out for two, in for two, out for two, without any holding, just like 20 times. And if I do that for myself, I know I can trust what comes next. So, for example, let's say you're doing something really difficult. You don't know, should I be pushing through or do I need to back off? Well, I do my breathing, that's my habit, and then I can trust the decision that I make next. If we don't have a conscious habit that lets us step back from that pattern of thought, feeling, behavior, we lose control of our choices. So, a habit could be making a cup of tea. When I was struggling with I was overeating for a period of time. I would say, okay, anytime I want this or that snack, just have a few slices of apple first. And then if you want that thing, go ahead. And of course, just having those few slices of apple allowed me to step back and decide consciously what I really needed or wanted rather than just giving in to that in the moment craving or urge. So
Yeah, I
our
like that.
habit,
Connecting with your nervous system, your body, being introspective.
exactly. For it's actually a very short time that it takes to completely shift out of a sort of a helpless mindset into a choice mindset that lets us feel really good about who we are. But it really comes down to habits so much of the time. And those habits can be maybe you write something on a post-it note. Maybe you send yourself a text message. Maybe you look at some pictures of your kids when they were babies. Whatever it is, light a candle, read scripture, whatever it is, it's that moment that allows you to go from being unconscious to conscious. And when we make decisions out of that conscious headspace, we learn so much more from it. Then it's much easier to evaluate, was that the right choice? Do I want to do it differently next time? And it gets us out of that judgment that is so defeating.
Yeah. I like too that the expectation there is fully within your control, which is I will behave and then I know that I can
Mhm.
handle whatever it is. Like I will behave in a certain way
Mhm.
so that we can regroup and the expectation is there rather than on people or situations.
Oh, right. For sure, for sure.
Yeah,
I
that's a joy
have
killer.
that is a joy killer. Oh my gosh. So I'd love if we have time to address what happens in families
Let's do it.
with conflict, because so often conflict activates our nervous system
Yes.
so quickly. And one of the habits, I've mentioned it a few times already, one of the habits that can help anyone anytime is a check in. What does it look like to check in with yourself? And what does it look like to check in with the other person? For example, you're sitting at the holiday table, someone brings up a topic, could be political, it could be a current event,
Definitely.
it could be an opinion. One of the first things we can do is check in, and you can ask yourself and you can ask the other person, what do we want to get out of this conversation? And what that does is allow us to consider our vision. What is what are you seeing come out of this? Are you looking for understanding? Are you looking for entertainment? Are you looking for humor to, you know,
Yeah.
joke about something? And many times you'll realize there is no good reason to have this conversation. And then you end it. You say, yeah, I don't know. And you move on rather than fighting.
My kids, my kids like to call me
Do
out
they
on
bait
this
you?
because the conversation will be turning away that I don't like. We'll just be in the kitchen or whatever. It's not
Yeah.
even like at the Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
And usually it's just like turning to bathroom humor or something that I just don't enjoy. And so I'll just be like, so how was school today?
And
Or,
they know
hey,
what
did you
that
hear
means.
about this? And they'll be like, Mom's changing the subject.
But I
And it's like,
love that.
yes, I am.
Yes, I am. I love that. And it's such a fun way to say, don't go there. Come on. Right.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't make you the
It can
bad
be
guy.
loving to everyone.
Yeah. You can still be fun doing that. No, I really like that. So the idea is that with just these micro choices, we can really direct the 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 path of the conversation and not let ourselves fall into that trap of getting into tension, stress with someone that literally has no good purpose.
Yeah.
I ask people a lot, how do you know that that other person is open to hearing what you have to say? And they're like, what? Like, yeah. Do you want to say what you're going to say if you don't have an audience? And sure enough, many times they say, oh, yeah, they're not listening to me. And then again, you can choose. Maybe I don't really want to say this unless I have a clear cue that that other person's really interested in what I have to say. And we
Yeah.
can do that by asking,
Mhm.
anybody want to talk about this? Or anybody want to hear my reaction to that? And
Yeah.
get a little joint decision made about what we're doing here.
Yeah. And I think all of the things that you've discussed so far speak to one overarching point that we haven't even said, we haven't even
Mm.
verbalized, which is like a sense of safety.
Oh, I love that word.
Because to ask
Mhm.
permission, to keep things kind, to create space, those are
Mhm.
all things that create safety. And it calms our nervous system, which feels peaceful, which then we can
Mm.
enjoy being together in whatever unpredicted situation we happen to find ourselves in the holidays or whatever, or undesired or whatever it is. Creating
Mm.
that sense of emotional safety, I think, is huge.
I love it that you mentioned that safety really is a sensation in the nervous system.
Yes.
And we can feel more safe by breathing. We can feel more safe by opening our heart and by doing our own check-in and remembering that we're in
Yeah.
charge. And we're creating an environment where we will be really vibing at that tone of safety for other people. And
Yeah.
it's more fun. It's just a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Not
Feels better.
overly sensitive. We don't want to get to the point where we feel like we have to tiptoe on eggshells with
That's not a
people.
sense of safety.
That's not safety.
That's a false sense of safety. Yeah.
That is, yeah, coddling or maybe even enabling. I guess that's another
Yeah.
topic. But safety is really that I see you, I hear you, and we're going to work together to make sure this experience is what we want.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. Where can listeners learn more about you, Amy?
So, for anyone struggling with co-parenting, I have a TikTok account,
Ah,
which I love. And I do a lot with LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn is Amy Armstrong Coach. And then I work with families through the Center for Family Resolution. And we have a website by the same name where folks can go in and book an appointment and do a free consultation with us and see if any coaching might help them work through an inner conflict or a conflict with a loved one.
yeah. And if your hands are busy, if you're driving or cooking dinner, it's all in the show notes. I've got it written down for you. So don't you worry. Okay, Amy,
Perfect.
thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you coming and visiting.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, everyone.
Heather is the one, an expert in the field. She knows her parenting stuff, including how confusing it can be. You've tried it all, and it's a lost cause. Crying in the closet 'cause you failed at being a mom. But think again, there's peace around the corner, and there's hope in your hands. Your kid just wants your love, and you want it from them. So take a picture.